Hola y bienvenidos, mis estudiantes. Welcome. Today I'm going to show you how you conjugate two verbs in a row. We're going to talk about conjugation. If you don't know what conjugation is, please go back and watch. I believe it's Actividad dos. There's a video on Edpuzzle that you can watch in order to get a refresher on conjugation. But I'm just going to go over it really quick. So one of the things that we have to do in English and Spanish is conjugate our verbs. An unconjugated verb, for example, would be like to talk. Um, so let's say if we don't conjugate our verbs, we're going to sound really, really strange. We would sound like Gerg the caveman. Fire, hot, no touch. For example, you might say, I too need to go to the store. That sounds funny because we're not conjugating our verbs. So we do it in English and Spanish. So go check out the video for Actividad dos, and you can check that out. We have three categories of verbs. We have, as review, that is an eraser. Okay. AR, ER, and IR verbs. Our verb endings, now these are going to go in order from yo, o, to, as, a, amos, ais, and on. And those are our verb endings for the various people. Yo, I, let me get out the laser. Yo, tú, él, ella, nosotros, vosotros, and ellos. For ER and IR verbs, they are very, very similar. But so I put them in their own category. The endings would be o, es, e, hemos, and imos, depending on if it is an ER or IR verb. Or, oh, we're going to say es slash is, and then n. So the only difference between AR or ER IR verbs would be imos and is. And you can see that there are similarities between AR and ER IR verbs. O, as, es, a, e, amos, hemos, or hemos, ais, ace, is, an, and en. So they're spelled very, very similarly, but depending on what the verb ending is, they will change. So there's one issue that we have, and this is something that I talk about in Spanish too. Spanish 1, you learn how to conjugate one verb. But what do we do if we have two verbs in a row? Well, if you have two verbs in a row, you leave the second one alone. The verb that deber is one of our verbs this week that we are going to use with another verb. So it's going to be there's going to be two that are right next to each other when we use the verb deber. Deber means ought to or should. And forgive me, I'm learning how to use this application, so this is going to be quite messy. Ought to or should. I'm using a stylus here, so I apologize for my terrible handwriting. If I want to say I should, we're just going to go through these. Yo debo, and for the lack of space, I'm just going to write debo. It ends in an O, so it can only be yo. Debo is I ought to or I should. Tú debes. Again, I'm taking off the A or the ER and I'm adding my endings. He or she or usted debe, nosotros debemos. If you want to learn the vosotros, you may. I don't require it for my class as I don't personally use it. And then lastly, deben for the ellos form. So let's take a look at this in context. If I want to translate, I should eat a banana. Well, first of all, I'm going to start my sentence off. Yo debo. We have two verbs in a row, so we will leave the second one alone. So this says, I should. The second verb we leave alone. The verb for to eat is comer, so we leave it there and leave it alone. A banana, una banana. Or plátano. But plátano is more of a plantain banana. I'm going to put a period at the end of my sentence. So this says, I should eat a banana. Yo debo comer una banana. Of course, this whole week is inspired by my silly little brother, so it wouldn't be a proper note session without mentioning Cameron. Cameron should not ride his scooter. You will find out why later on in the week. But Cameron, so I will write his name down because we need it for our sentence. Cameron, we need the verb should. Now we have to have the conjugated verb. We cannot just put deber down. It's not going to work. So we need to have the conjugation. The he, she conjugation is debe. So I will use that one. Cameron, wait a second. He should not. If we want to make it negative, we just put no in front of it. No. Debe. On our vocab list this week, the verb to ride is montar, not montar. It was andar. Andar was the phrase that we used. Andar in his scooter. It's okay if you just write a scooter here because it's assumed that it is his scooter, not somebody else's, unless you specify otherwise. So this reads, Cameron should not ride his scooter, and we leave that second verb alone. We conjugate the first one. Lastly, we should study Spanish. Yes, that is. Now, if you did or did not study enough of the vocabulary, hopefully this week you guys will. So, we should study Spanish. Well, nosotros, if we want to write that, that is optional technically because the verb ending will tell us. I'm going to erase that. That is not pretty. Let's try that again. We should, nosotros, and it is not, boy, it's not liking this at all whatsoever. So I'm going to try this one last time. Nosotros debemos, right? Debemos, right here, it's our nosotros form. Debemos study. We leave the second verb alone. Estudiar el español. Period at the end. So we, nosotros, we should, debemos, we leave the verb study alone because there are two verbs in a row. And then lastly, what we are studying. Is that it? I believe that is it. So that is what you do. If you have two verbs in a row, you leave the second one alone. Here are our conjugations of the verb deber. I should, yo debo, you should, tú debes, he should, él debe, we should, debemos, and they should or y'all should, deben. This verb is super, super useful for when we want to persuade someone to take a course of action, which is one of the tasks that you may do on the Regents exam. By the way, I do apologize for my handwriting here. I'm working on using this app appropriately, so just bear with me while I figure out what is the best way to write on this tablet. Thank you for your time, and by the way, you can, I don't know how I'm going to do this. These notes will be available to you, and you'll be able to type them up if you would like to, and also file them in your Google Drive. Thank you so much for your time, y adios.